In this video, I'm going to show you how to draw a realistic looking white fluffy dog. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Julieta and I'm an international portrait artist. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how to draw a realistic looking portrait of a white fluffy dog. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy it. Today I got started with a new artwork. In this case is this beautiful girl. What a pretty doggy she is. And today I'm going to show you, since you can actually see I just got started, and I will show you how I'm creating this. Because one thing that is important that I want to mention is, like, when you see a dog that is usually creamy color or white or something like that, you think that it's just going to be white. Oh no. I'm using so many colors, and just for our purposes today I'm going to use these, which are brown, black, charcoal gray, and then this kind of like super pale yellow. So we're going to start just smoking out some of this, because that's an important thing to do. Like when you're working with something like this, with the reference picture, yeah, I'll show it to you later probably, it's a mixture of a lot of colors. So that's why I would recommend, always getting good quality pastels. Like in this case, that's what we're using. Yeah, just use good quality pastel pencils so they can blend. And then you can get as close as possible to the color that you're trying to reproduce. So I will start, like in this case, for the darker values, I am mixing the dark brown, and I am mixing it with the charcoal gray. So we're going to blend these two. And so why am I doing this and I'm not going here? Because we're following the same principle that I always talk about, that I always follow in all my drawings, which is go from the background to the front. Always start from the background and then you go inward, okay? Don't start from the top and then go back towards the other layers, because that will, it's possible, but it will have a much harder time and it will take you longer, because one of the purposes that we have here is to be efficient and to be, as efficient as we can with the time that we have, because otherwise it just gets frustrating too. And here I'm just going with some of this like lighter gray, but I think that it's not going to be the case, just the charcoal. That's why I said let's stick to these four colors. But it's always good to, give it a try and see how you work with what you have. It all depends also on the reference picture, like I said before. And now we're going to do a little bits of lines over here. Remember that the more thin lines that you apply, the more realistic it's going to look. So that's what we're doing. And now I'm going to show you the fun part. That is a part that we all want to get to, but first we need to go through the kind of tedious, or more like, okay, I need to lay the foundation, but it's not the fun part. Well, soon we're going to see how the magic happens as far as like creating that texture that we all want to achieve. So now I'm just like filling in a little bit the darks underneath and here as well. But here, this area right here, we're going to start lightening it up a little bit. I wouldn't worry very much about having all the hairs perfectly right at this moment, because a drawing like this goes in stages. It really does go in stages. So you need to be patient. These things are not done in a matter of seconds. Let me just get my onion paper real quick, because I don't want to smudge anything. All right, let's focus on this area right here. Now you see, now I'm going to start applying a little bit of the lighter color. And you see how pretty it blends? I don't know if you guys can see, especially this area right here. It's going to start overlapping. All right, like that. You see, guys, like now that we have this foundation set over here, you can just do it here and just let go like that. And the lighter automatically is going to blend with the darker. And it's really pretty. That's what you want to achieve. And that's the little beard of the dog. It's starting to look more realistic in this case. And also something like this, especially when you're working with dogs or any furry being for that matter, it's important to kind of have a visual of how many layers you're working with. In this case, we're working with quite a few. This is kind of nice what I'm doing right now. This is a tortillion, for those of us who are wondering what it is. This is something I use for literally like every single drawing that I make and tutorial. And so try to imagine in your mind that you're working with something that has layer after layer after layer of value. So now that we're still focusing on this area, because this is just a small example of what the whole composition is kind of going to be. So it's always good to imagine where the light source is coming from. In this case, it's coming from over here, and you can probably see that because see how light this is? So since it's coming from there, and this is the part that comes out the most, you're going to see some reflections over here for the little hairs right here. So now we're just applying some of this one, but we can also, once we're done with that, you can do little splashes of white. Now this is like the whitest white, and this, use it very sparingly. This is just for little areas that are like supposed to be very highly highlighted, like that, for example. You see the difference? Yeah, I see the difference. Those are little tricks that only we know about, and then someone will look at it and it's like, oh yeah, like how does it look so realistic? Because of these things, because of these tricks. You see that? So these little hairs, those are the ones that are more in contact with the light source, and that's why they're a little lighter than the lighter values that are on this little girl's beard, or little, the hair. So now we're going to go back and just do a little bit more dark over here, just to give it more depth. And then we sort of, continue following the same pattern. And then just, follow along with what the reference picture is showing you. These over here are probably going to be a little more blended with the grays because they're not like the lightest, but it's always good to kind of go there, and then you just mix it up a little bit, or you blend it. A great way to blend it is with the tortillions, like this. See? So you can see that it's lighter, but it's not necessarily like super, super light. Very good. So now I will probably jump in. So this that I just did here, that's literally like what I do with the entire composition in all the different sections, because it's kind of good in your mind to divide it by sections so you don't get like overwhelmed. One thing that helps me is to go like little areas, little patches of areas, and just do like a general shading, kind of like here and here, because once you have the background, which is like right here, that is a little bit darker, then you work on top of it and you do the lighter values on top of the darker, because it's always better to do it that way. Don't start with the light, always start with the darkest values for many reasons. Number one, what I said before, that it's easier to go from like darker to lighter as far as like blending the colors, and because the dark is usually what it's behind, not in the front. So I'm hoping that this makes sense. If it doesn't make much sense, just kind of keep looking, keep watching these lives, and it's going to be like, oh yeah, I think I kind of know what she means by that. Now I'm just working a little bit around her nose, and I'm going to use the same values that I used before, which are charcoal gray. It's going to be a combination of charcoal gray with brown. And there will be some areas, as we explore this further, probably in our following tutorial, there are going to be some areas where the brown is going to be a lighter brown, but right now I don't want to get too overwhelming with the different values. So now let's just stick to the four that I showed you at the beginning, which again are the charcoal gray, black, brown, and pale yellow. I know I used a little bit of white, but that was just to show you the whole thing about how do you call it? The highlight. That's all. Now there's brown here, so we're just mixing it up a little bit with this one. Now we're going to go to the brown. See, and it makes like a really interesting value right here. I don't know how to call this. It's like a grayish brown or a brownish gray. But you know, if you feel more comfortable, not starting immediately on the canvas or on the paper, just, you know, use a paper like a regular, how do you call it? Just a regular scratch paper, or of the same type of paper, so you don't, you know, so you get a much like clear idea, and then go from there. So now instead of using your tortillion, because these are bigger areas, I'm using my wonderful Walmart Q-tip, which is surprisingly an amazing tool. Now we're going to go back to a lighter one. This one to come out right of the nose. The nose is actually a very interesting area because I like right here, I'm just getting started here, but I'm telling you, they're going to be like probably 6 different colors just around the nose. And that's what makes it so cool and so realistic once you're kind of done with all of that. And you can probably hear my kids in the background. They're so cute. They're having fun. Okay. See, that's another reason why I tell you go from the bottom, from the back towards the front, because here we're going to start overlapping some of this, some of the ones that we have worked on before. And we're going to go back with a little bit of gray. And this is going to be a lighter area, so I don't want to go too heavy on the brown and the gray and everything. So we will do this, and since it's a smaller area, I'm going to blend all of this with just tortillions. I really recommend going little by little. And I also recommend checking out, if you're interested in doing dog portraits, just check out, you know, my other tutorials or other artists that do the same type of thing, because everybody, one thing I've found that we all have in common is that you have to go in sections, because you're working with little hairs, you're working with very fine details, so you want to be as faithful to the original as you can. Okay, there. Now we're mixing it with a little bit of gray. So cute. I love these little poochies. Okay. There we go, see? Now that's working out very nicely. And then we're going to go down a little bit more. And I think once I'm done with this area right here, I might stop for today. And we will recap what we have touched on today, which is when you're working on a composition like this one, the dog that is white, remember to do the darker areas first. You most likely will have to do a blend of a couple of colors to achieve the color that is closest to the reference picture. And once you're done with the darker background, start going towards the front, and that's when you're going to start doing the lights, and that's when they're going to blend the best. And then the other thing, keep your pencils as sharpened as possible, because what you want is to do that realistic effect with the hairs. And use the tools that I showed you, the tortillion and also like the Q-tip for broader areas, and just keep basing yourself on the reference picture. Today, the first thing that I will show you is how I lay foundation first, like what's my procedure, my method to create, let's say, areas like this, where you have the darker in the background and then you have the lighter as you keep going more towards the surface. So first I will show you this area right here that is already ready to work on. And the way I achieve this is, in this case in particular, I mix these two pastel colors, which are brown and a charcoal gray. So I will demonstrate over here, just so I can give you an idea of how I achieve that. So first I lay, I mean, it doesn't really make a difference whether you do one first over the other, like, because both of them are gonna blend. So I'm gonna applying a little bit of brown, now I'm applying a little bit of gray, like this. And once we have both colors laid one on top of the other, we're going to take one of our blending tools. In this case, we're going to use the the Q-tip. This is the one for broader areas. So this is how we blend these together and give it that smooth finish. And this is going to be the background. Now that we have this background laid, And as you can see, it's mainly uniform, but because this is what you're actually going to see towards the end. So it doesn't have to be completely perfect or uniform or whatever. But now, before we actually start working on the hairs, I will show you the other blending tool that I use, which is, yes, the Tortillion. And I'm going to use it for this area that I left like this on purpose so I can show you how it's blended. These are parts that I actually went in after and filled them out because this is going to be one of your last steps. I'm just showing it for purposes of showing you the two blending methods that I use. This is done much afterwards, once you actually put the hairs and then you fill out the empty spaces with a darker value, because you want to achieve that nice, realistic looking 3D effect. And then I go back with black, like this, and just in a few places, it doesn't have to be everywhere, just so you can get the overall effect of depth, like this. And it's kind of nice when you put darks right next to lights, because that's what gives it that nice contrast. Let's do a little bit more of lights over here. And this is the same color that I used last time. It's like this really nice pale yellow that I'm like almost running out of. I don't know what I'm gonna do after I'm done, but I'll figure something out. And as we keep going towards the end of her body, it's gonna start getting lighter, because these are the parts that are going to be more in touch with the light source, even though it's coming from like here. So it tells us that it's like closer to that. So I'm just gonna do a few more hairs here just to show you. And there's really no science, just also follow the reference picture. Like I said, it will get lighter towards the edges of the dog. And once we are in the very, very ending stages, we will use very sparingly, not going crazy, with real like super white, super light white. And this is just to create very light highlights. Because it's pretty amazing, isn't it? Like, I'll just show you right here. It's pretty amazing how you're working with this cute, like yellowish color that almost looks white, but then you're actually, the moment that you do apply white, you realize how much more fun you can have with these textures. I'll just do a couple more so you guys can see. And then we're gonna move on to what I started talking about at the beginning. All right, so now that we're done with this, I'm going to start filling it in with the hairs. All right. And some of these hairs are gonna fade a little bit in the background. That's why I'm not pressing very hard, because if you look at dogs or any animals for that matter, they're not just a straight surface. You know, they have depressions like here. They have different textures like here. This is the chest, so it's going to be darker. Why is it going to be darker? Because the chest is pushed back, and then the legs are the ones that are coming forward. So that's why in this part I'm not going to go crazy with the yellow. Crazy as far as like pressing the pencil too much, just to give it that nice effect of hairs, because we all know that the hair is still there, but it's not going to be as noticeable or as light as it is over here, because here is actually like really, really light. I'll have to keep working on this, but it kind of get my drift. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit more, and this is actually something that we are going to blend a little bit with the Tortillion. I'm going to go back and blend it a little bit, because they're not very defined, the hairs right here. And this is the collar. So if you're wondering what all of this is, it's just the collar. And then, I'm doing very, very thin, very light strokes with the pencil. And I'm gonna go back here. See what I mean by blending them with the background? Because the predominant value in this area right here is going to be the brown, not the light so much. And then we're going to go back later and fill it up with a little bit darker values. We're going to keep doing this a little bit, very light hand. Now here we're going to go heavier on the lighter values, because here we're getting closer to the leg of the dog, because this is the body, and it kind of finishes over here where I have the little pencil traces. So her leg is going to be here, so this part is going to be very light. So let's start working on that. Just a few traces more. And here, This is probably the last area that we're going to do a softer color. Now, this is probably going to be, now we're going to start with the lighter values right here. So what I would like to do here for you to see, I'm not really paying much attention to how specific I'm going to be with the hairs, because this is going to be the main value, but it can be just light. So we are going to go back with one of our blending tools, the super sophisticated Q-tip. And in this case, I'm going to use just the residue that was here from the other blendings, just to give a very, very light brownish tint, like hue underneath. It's kind of gonna blend a little bit with the light. Okay, something like that. And we could actually do a little bit of brown very lightly, just as a background. We're gonna take this again. By the way, I use these until, you know, they don't blend anymore. I mean, this is like probably one of the most economical, like, you can use this so much and it goes a long way. So now let's do a little bit more of their hairs, like this. So guys, tell me where you're from, and are you artists? Are you, how long have you been drawing? Do you just like to, are you learning right now? All of those things I really like. I'm a very curious person. All right. And thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I hope this is useful. So I'm not gonna keep going this way because it's gonna get boring. I basically just wanna show you the techniques that I use and that you can apply them to your own work. So what I will do right now, I will go back to a darker, here it is, darker shade of brown, because once we do the first step, which is laying the foundation, second step, starting to do the hairs, we will go back and fill in with a darker value. Why do we do this? Because this is going to help with the overall realistic look of the composition. Kind of like what I told you, like in this area and what I did in this area. This is the same, exactly the same process that I follow in every single part of the drawing. There's really no magic involved. It's just repeating the same procedures over and over again. And what makes the difference is what part of the drawing you're working on, what colors you're going to apply, and that has to do also with your observation skills as far as the reference picture. Because one thing that I've noticed that is really interesting, how the brain works. We want to find something that is uniform. Our brain wants to find something that is uniform, and we don't have to think about it and kind of be automatic. But truth is, observation skills play a big role here. Just guide yourself, not only through your common sense, but by what the picture is showing you. So now that we kind of have done this area right here, and this one, like I said, I could keep going, but you kind of get the idea. Or otherwise, ask me more questions and I will direct you very soon to the complete tutorial of this that is going to be on my YouTube channel, so I'm excited about that. So what we will do, I'm just going to go to another area kind of to make it a little bit more fun, and we're going to follow the same method that I did, but over here, just for a little bit, and then we're kind of going to be done. You see here that I left on purpose a few traces without blending. So first we're going to blend them. I use the same combination that I used over here, which is brown and charcoal gray. Now we're blending. And just as we were talking about in this area of the chest, same thing happens here between the eyes of this beautiful, beautiful puppy, which is, this is the part that goes inward. And this is like all the hair is the part that goes like closer towards the light source. That's why this area here is darker. Now that we lay the dark foundation, we're gonna go to the fun part. This is my favorite part, actually. Oh, my pencil is like starting to lose its sharpness. Oh, where's my, sorry about that. I forgot my onion paper, because we don't want our natural oils to mix with the drawing, because you don't want any smudges or, you know, that kind of stuff. That's not good. So I'm kind of going upward Yeah, like I said, very soon I'm gonna have to sharpen this pencil. And here is gonna be interesting because we're gonna apply a little bit of grace. It's interesting how there's some areas, but look what I'm doing. Like, I'm not going with the grace first here, I'm going with the lights. Why? Because the predominant value, once we get to this point, is going to be lights, the pale yellow value. Here you can see that I already applied a little bit of gray, right? So once I'm done with the most predominant value, that in this case is gray, I'm sorry, pale yellow, I will go back and apply a little bit of gray. So I will show you what I mean in a second. I just want to lay a little bit more of this. Okay. Before doing that, I will show you. I'm going to use the other end of the tortillion that is for like lighter values. Just going to blend a little bit so we don't have powder all over the place. Now we are going to take a gray, but it's not going to be charcoal gray. It's going to be a tone lighter. See, this is the charcoal gray we used first, and this is a shade lighter. If you want to see, I always put it in my description, but this is Carbothelo, Stabillo. It's a gray brand. It blends really nicely. So, let me see here. This is what I mean. We're going to apply a little bit like this. Like that. It's like a reverse thing, like filling out empty spaces. And you might wonder, where do I apply those? Just apply them, just guide yourself through the reference picture. If you see that something doesn't make sense, or you think you're probably getting confused and stuff, always go back to the picture and be mindful of your own hand trying to do it. And like I said, guys, if you check out my YouTube channel, this video for this dog in particular is going to be out probably in another couple of weeks. Right now, the videos that I'm uploading is just a series of a 5-stage portrait of the actor Sidney Poitier. I'm sorry if I'm like totally mispronouncing it. That is made with just charcoal pencils, not pastel pencils. But stay tuned and subscribe if you want to know exactly like all these details that I'm explaining here, but in further detail. So at this final stage of the drawing, we are going to work on the last details to make it look realistic. Right now, what I am doing is just applying a little bit of a darker layer to the edges of his fur, using just charcoal gray, going all the way to the borders and always making sure that you're following the same direction of the hairs. In this case, they're going downward. And then, yeah, now we're going to switch to black as we are going inward towards the ears. Because the further the texture is from the light source, the darker it's going to be. And now once we lay the values, we apply the tortillion once again to smoke out these values and make them look more realistic and smoother. And now we're going to go back gradually to the lighter values. In this case, we're applying the pale yellow and tracing some of the lighter hairs, which is the overall color of the dog. And we're doing very fine tracing, because the finer the detail, the more realistic it's going to look, as it's going to give the hairs a more realistic look. And always make sure to follow the same direction. They all have to follow a pattern in order for it to make sense. make sure you fill out all the empty spaces there might be, so you give it the texture of hair. Now we're going to go back to darker values just to fill it out, and that way we are going to give it more depth, more of a 3D effect. Now we go back to the tortillion, and we're going to repeat the same procedure as we did before, just to smoke out and blend the different values. Now we're going to go to pure white, because like we always do, we always start from the darker values and then we go from darker to lighter. In this case, we're going to start focusing on the final details as far as highlight goes. And as you can see, I'm moving all over. I'm not just focusing in one area. Obviously, we're in the right area because that's the one we had missing to do. And we're basically highlighting, tracing that was already there. And at this point, now that we're almost done with the whole composition, just make sure you take a good overall look of the whole drawing and just go over it and make sure to highlight with this same super light value every section that needs highlighting. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got to learn a few new things that you can apply. Don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. And if you feel led to, please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click on the bell. Therefore, that way you can get a notification every time a new tutorial is uploaded. And let me know if you have any questions or anything else, any suggestions of what you would like to learn in the next videos. And I hope you have a wonderful day and see you next time.